Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Art of Being a Woman. I'm your host, Courtney, and today we are discussing the art of letting your past self die. What a dramatic title. Honestly, it's an important one, but it does give off a very intense energy. So I am very excited to discuss this more in depth so that we can really get to the bottom of what it means to let your past self die and why we would even be interested in doing such a thing. I will be referencing my written post from Instagram and Threads, and if you don't follow me on either platform, you should, because I post a lot of the topics that I discuss on the podcast there as well, plus a lot more. I post almost every single day on Threads, and I post a few times a week on Instagram. So if that's something you are interested in, join me over there. Now, the 4 steps that we're going to get into this week are the following. Step 1, reframe what death really means. Step 2, challenge what you call your nature. Step 3, respect the role of your past self. And step 4, allow others to be confused. Let's begin with step 1, reframe what death really means. Just a little tidbit about me. I am a Scorpio, and if you're not into astrology, that's perfectly fine. I am into astrology, and something that is very well known in the astrology community is that Scorpio represents death. And if you're not a Scorpio, that's very intimidating and unsettling to hear, but when you are a Scorpio, I think it resonates and it almost feels powerful once you understand what death really means. So I am very honored to discuss what it means to let your past self die and also share a fresh perspective on what death means, at least to me. Many times we can correlate death to destruction. We might assume it's something negative, because what comes to mind when we hear the word death is the loss of a loved one. And although that is very painful and hard to deal with and accept, it is truly the circle of life. Now, knowing death is a part of the circle of life doesn't necessarily make it easier to experience, but when we know that death is inevitable, instead of resisting it and denying it and avoiding it and fearing it, we can begin to use it to our advantage in a way. Now, obviously, I'm not referring to the death of others in this episode at all. I'm strictly referring to the death of past versions of ourselves. But I will briefly say that the death of a loved one can also be channeled into great energy, because all pain can be transmuted into light. And light is what alleviates the darkness in this world. And currently there is a lot of darkness in this world. Now, back to our focus. Reframing what death really means to us on a personal level. There are moments in life when we reflect on our past and we think about how we want our future to look. And we know that something has to change. Sometimes it's because we know where we want to be in a few years from now, and we're very aware that if we don't make some real lifestyle choices, we will not be getting there. Or we can have moments of deep reflection and realize that who we are in this current moment is very different than who we were in the past. Whether that was us 1 year ago, us 5 years ago, or perhaps us yesterday. It really just depends on how much our awareness of ourself is growing. Either way, when we experience either realization, a decision has to be made within ourselves. And that decision is to put that past version of ourselves to rest and not look back. Because we can never truly move forward if we're always looking behind us. This doesn't mean that we're embarrassed of past versions of ourselves or that we're in denial. It's actually the complete opposite. It's when you reach that point of understanding that who you were is no longer a fit for who you want to be and who you're trying to become, and you're making a decision to take your life into your own hands and seek out a more fulfilling life. Whether we realize it or not, we are going to be letting past versions of ourselves die quite a few times in life. And it's not meant to cause us any pain or feel loss. It's only trying to take us to our next level of potential. I talk about purpose a lot on this podcast, and this episode strongly relates to purpose because the more that we let past versions of ourselves die, the closer we're getting to our purpose if we haven't discovered what that is yet. And on top of that, once we discover our purpose and we continue to let past versions of ourselves die, we begin to ascend spiritually very quickly because we no longer fear death. We no longer fear letting go of past versions of ourselves because we know it's only going to take us further on this journey of life and bring us closer to the reason why we came here. This is something that I personally experienced with writing and podcasting. It definitely required me to let a lot of versions of myself die. And these were versions of myself that cared what other people thought of me, felt the need to censor what I was talking about, and also the version of me that thought being seen and being heard was scary. And when I let all those versions of myself go, my purpose felt a lot clearer, and the ideas that I felt inspired to write about became clearer and more frequent. I realized the pattern. The more that I let past versions of myself die, the more I was tapping into a higher version of myself, a more authentic and powerful version of myself. It truly transformed me. And that's ultimately what death really means. It's a transformation from one form to the other. So if you are in a period of your life where you're feeling very different within, or perhaps your external reality is feeling very different and you don't know why, perhaps your job is changing, the people you spend time with are changing, and you're not really sure how your future is going to unfold and what these changes mean for you, understand that you're experiencing a death of some sort, but you're also experiencing a transformation of yourself. And many times, transformation feels and looks really chaotic in the beginning. It feels very destructive and messy. So it's normal to think something is wrong with us or with our circumstances. But it's a matter of trusting the process, which is not easy, but trust is crucial in this world and in life. And on top of trust in the process, it requires courage because you need to be the one that mentally carries yourself through this dark time, this change in your life when nothing feels certain. And in the future, you will feel so grateful that you pushed through a confusing and transformative time in your life. On top of that, you will realize that if you can go through a transformation and you can go through the death of a past version of yourself, then you can go through anything because no matter what you experience, you can just decide this is not who I want to be anymore and I'll change because ultimately you can. You can do that whenever you want to, whenever you decide to. So try your best not to fear endings as much because after every ending comes a new beginning. And once that beginning starts to settle in, you will understand the purpose of why you had to go through that death. Step 2. Challenge what you call your nature. This step was for those that feel that they cannot change certain things about their personality and change certain things about themselves as a whole. This step is also for the past version of me that believed I couldn't change certain things about myself because they were so fixed and I had always been a certain way for most of my life. I have dedicated so many episodes to discussing how little control we have over things in life. But the one thing I always emphasize that we have control over is our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Now, just to really break down that statement, I understand that thoughts come and go. We can't really control the thoughts that pop into our head. And I've discussed that on my ego series. But we are in control of the thoughts we choose to entertain and the thoughts that we choose to believe. With feelings come and go just like thoughts. It's like weather. So you can't necessarily control how you feel, but you control how you react to your feelings. The best reaction is to just observe, allow yourself to experience them, feel it, and it will pass on its own. That is what we have control over when it comes to our feelings. And with our actions, I would assume that this is the most obvious one, but maybe it's not to everyone. We are constantly making choices every single day, even if we feel like we don't have a choice. If we choose to wake up and go to a job we don't like, but we go anyways because we need money to pay our bills, it's still a choice we're making. We're choosing to go to a job we don't like because we have to pay our bills. That's just a fact. It's a choice we're making. So we have control over that choice. We might not have control over the options we have, but we still have control over the action that we take in life. If we truly didn't want to do something, we wouldn't do it. Now, I bring all of this up because if you're in a place in your life where you feel stuck in a way, perhaps you want to branch out, perhaps you want to expand your personality a little bit or change your personality a little bit. And I don't mean that in a negative way. There's nothing wrong with our personalities, but sometimes we really know when our personality holds us back. For example, me personally, I have never been considered an extroverted person. And I was told this, honestly, my whole life. And honestly, I internalized it because it made sense. I never really had a large group of friends. I always preferred to have a few very close friends at a time. And sometimes we were within one group, but sometimes I had my individual friendships with each and every one of these people. And I preferred it that way. I never really liked superficial connections. It was very hard for me to entertain those for a long period of time. But for some reason, when I internalized that label of being introverted and not really being a social person, I honestly never really tried being extroverted. I never tried to put myself out there with new people. I never really did things in large groups. And I just used my personality as an excuse. It wasn't until college and not undergrad. This was when I started my master's program and COVID was slowly ending that I was really craving connection. And I didn't really care too much who it was with. I just missed being around people my own age. So I remember I started introducing myself to every single person that I crossed paths with on my first day. And wow, I realized that it was a lot easier than I realized to be extroverted. It was a lot easier to make connections with people than I thought it would be. And I also realized that I enjoy it a lot. I actually love small talk and I love getting to know new people, even if it's brief. I love the excitement that comes with that. I ended up realizing that I'm actually not as introverted as I thought I was. I just never really allowed myself to step outside of my comfort zone. Although that was a small moment, it ended up changing my perspective on what I thought my nature was. And I realized that I honestly could be whoever it is that I wanted to be if I just go for it and try. But it requires a challenge. You have to really go against what you believe your nature really is. Just because we've done something a million times doesn't mean we must continue to do things the same way a million more times. We can decide to choose differently at any given moment. And especially when we are in a period in our life where we are craving change, we're craving newness, we feel sort of suffocated in our old life because we've outgrown the ways that we used to be. That is when we need to challenge our nature the most to really see what we're capable of and also discover what would actually make us feel more fulfilled and more excited for life. Perhaps you're similar to me and you feel like you're very introverted because for most of your life you were. But have you ever tried being extroverted? And I don't mean Have you tried being extroverted in the past and it didn't work? No. Have you tried being extroverted currently? And if not, try it. You might be surprised to learn that there's a whole other version of yourself that's waiting to be discovered, and it's been sleeping. It's been waiting for you to access it. The last thing I want anyone to do is feel stuck, as if they don't have the freedom to choose differently, because that is one of the few things you have control over in life. So exercise that freedom, exercise that control, exercise that power you have over yourself, and really do something daring. Step 3, respect the role of your past self. This is very, very important. I'm saying very twice because it is that important. It is almost counterproductive to destroy a past version of yourself if you do not respect that the existence of your past self was not only necessary for your growth, but had it not been for every past version of yourself, you would not be where you are today. And that includes the version of yourself that made mistakes, that you're not proud of. Every single version of yourself has value and holds wisdom that can push you further in life. And when we judge our past selves and criticize it, even if it's only internally, that's still disrespectful to our past self. And when we cringe and we judge our past selves, we're creating shame. And shame is a very low vibration. It really disconnects us from ourself. And the whole purpose of life is to reconnect with yourself and deepen that connection more and more. And honestly, judging and criticizing our past selves doesn't change the fact that they existed. Regardless if we're embarrassed that we did something in the past, even if we're embarrassed that we did something that we're not proud of, we still did something we weren't proud of. So rather than feeling embarrassed by it, accept it so that you don't hold it against yourself anymore, but also so other people can't hold it against you. The goal is to really get to a point where you can't really be embarrassed because you accept all the parts of yourself, the good and the bad. And we all have both. I wouldn't even call it good and bad. I would say positive and negative. We need that contrast. We need that balance in our life. Denying that we have negativity within us just prevents us from moving forward because we're not integrating the lessons that we could have learned from our past mistakes. We lose the gift of all the experiences that version of ourselves had, and we risk life repeating those experiences in different forms to make sure we really learn those lessons so that we could ascend into a higher version of ourselves. Step 4, allow others to be confused. Sometimes we don't have a problem with letting our past self die at all. If anything, we love it and we embrace it. I would put myself in that category, at least now, because after letting past versions of myself die countless times, it starts to feel exciting because newness is exciting. To repeat the same old script over and over again is very boring, in my opinion. If you feel similarly and you're ready, you're willing to let your past self die, you know it's a good thing, you know what you want to change, you know why you want to change, and you respect that everything you've ever experienced up until this current moment was perfect and necessary to take you further in life, there's usually one more test before our past self has fully died. And it's what other people think about it. It's one thing to get to a level of acceptance with yourself, but it's a whole other level to accept yourself when others don't. Because the way that this world is set up, we're born into a society where we believe that other people not agreeing with the things that we do is dangerous. It's risky. And I get that. That makes sense because nobody wants to be alone. Nobody wants to feel like no one understands them. But when we let past versions of ourselves die, it's just a transition period. The people around us temporarily don't understand the changes we've made. And they might not accept it. They might be confused. They might just not agree. They might really believe that a past version of yourself is just way better than who you're deciding to become. But the truth is, that's perfectly okay. People are allowed to think and feel however they want, and we should never let that affect the choices that we make in life. It should never influence what we know is best for us, because we are not here to live for other people. We're here to live for ourselves. And that sounds really cheesy, but I promise you, if you were to live your life preventing other people's confusion and ensuring that everyone agreed and accepted the things that you did in life, you will be very unhappy. Short term, you might be happy because you feel supported by those around you, but later down the line, you'll realize that they're supporting a version of you, the version of you that they believe is best. And that might not be who you truly are anymore. Make the decision to let your past self die when you're ready and allow others to feel however they want about it. Some will get on board, some won't. Take mental note of that, not to hold a grudge on anyone, because that only hurts yourself. Take note of those that only accept you conditionally, because you will need to remind yourself in the future, when you continue to choose what's best for you, that their opinions should never hold you back, because they were never truly supporting your evolution to begin with. No matter what someone thinks or feels about this new version of yourself, don't allow it to hold you back from stepping into your highest potential. If you follow these 4 steps, you will have mastered the art of letting your past self die, and you will ascend into a higher version of yourself. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. It was definitely very serious, in my opinion. I didn't expect it to be so serious. I guess it's because I don't see death as that intense anymore, but that could be because I feel I've experienced it a countless amount of times. But either way, I'm glad that this conversation was had. I would love to hear your thoughts and your experiences on letting past versions of yourself die and what that means to you. So leave a comment. I love that you can leave comments on podcasts. I will read them and I will respond. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate this podcast and share it with a friend or a family member, anyone that you think would benefit from this episode. I hope you have an amazing week. I love you all. Until next time, bye for now.